Welcome students, welcome fellow travelers. In previous video, I had told you that how a South Indian became a Buddhist monk and he traveled to China and made whole East Buddhism. Through China, it went to Japan, it went to whole of Asia and whole East became Buddhist. So his teachings are compiled in a book, Jain Teachings of Bodhidharma. Yes, in a previous video I had read the outline of practice paras. Today I am reading Bloodstream Sermon. So Bodhidharma says, everything that appear in the three realms come from mind. Hence Buddhas of the past and future teach mind to mind without bothering about definitions. But if they don't define it, what do they mean by mind? You ask, that's your mind. I answer, that's my mind. If I had no mind, how could I answer? If you had no mind, how could you ask? That which ask is your mind. Through endless kalpas, without beginning, whatever you do, whatever you are, wherever you are, that's your real mind, that's your real Buddha. This mind is the Buddha says the same thing. Beyond this mind, you'll never find another Buddha. To search for enlightenment or nirvana beyond this mind is impossible. The reality of your own self nature, the absence of cause and effect, is what's meant by mind. Your mind is nirvana. You might think you can find a Buddha or enlightenment somewhere beyond the mind, but such a place doesn't exist. Trying to find a Buddha or enlightenment is like trying to grab space. Space has a name but no form. It is not something you can pick up or put down. And you certainly can't grab it. Beyond this mind, you'll never see a Buddha. This Buddha is product of your mind. By why look for a Buddha beyond his mind? Buddhas of the past and future only talk about this mind. The mind is the Buddha and the Buddha is the mind. Beyond the mind there is no Buddha and beyond the Buddhas there is no mind. If you think there is a Buddha beyond the mind, where is he? There is no Buddha beyond the mind, so why envision one? You can't know your real mind as long as you deceive yourself. As long as you are enthralled by a lifeless form, you are not free. If you don't believe me, deceiving yourself won't help. It is not the Buddha's fault people, though are deluded, they are unaware that their own mind is the Buddha. Otherwise, they won't look for a Buddha outside the mind. Buddhas don't say Buddhas. If you use your mind to look for Buddha, you won't see the Buddha. As long as you look for a Buddha somewhere else, you'll never see your own mind is the Buddha. Don't use a Buddha to worship a Buddha, and don't use the mind to invoke a Buddha. Buddhas don't recite sutras, Buddhas don't keep precepts, and Buddhas don't break precepts. Buddhas don't keep or break anything. Buddhas don't do good or evil. To find a Buddha, You have to see your nature. Whoever sees his nature is a Buddha. If you don't see your nature, invoking Buddhas, reciting sutras, making offering and keeping precepts are all useless. Invoking Buddhas results in good karma, reciting sutras results in a good memory, keeping precepts result in a good rebirth, and making offering results in future blessings. But no Buddha, but not Buddha. If you don't understand by yourself, you'll have to find a teacher to get to the bottom of life and death. But unless he sees his nature, such a person is not a teacher. Even if he can recite the twofold canon, he can't escape the wheel of birth and death. He suffers in the three realms without hope of release. Long ago, the monk Good Star was able to recite the entire canon, but he didn't escape the wheel because he didn't see his nature. But this was the case with Good Star. Then people nowadays who recite a few sutras or sahastras and think it is the dharma are fools. Unless you see your mind, reciting so much prose is useless. To find a Buddha, all you have to do is to see your nature. Your nature is the Buddha, and the Buddha is the person who is free from plans, free of cares. If you don't see your nature and run around all day looking somewhere else, you'll never find a Buddha. The truth is, there is nothing to find, but to reach such an understanding, you need a teacher, and you need to struggle to make yourself understand. Life and death are important. Don't suffer them in vain. There is no advantage in deceiving you. Even if you have mountains of jewels and as many as servants as there are grains of sand along the Ganges, you see them when your eyes are open, but what about when your eyes are shut? You should realize that everything you see is like a dream or illusion. If you don't find a teacher soon, you'll live this life in vain. It is true. If you have a Buddha nature, but without the help of a teacher, you'll never know it. Only one person in a million becomes enlightened without a teacher's help. If though by the conjunction of conditions someone understand what the Buddha means, the person doesn't need a teacher. Such a person has a natural awareness superior to anything taught. But unless you are so blessed, study hard and by means of instruction you'll understand. People who don't understand and think they can do so without study are no different from those deluded souls who can't tell white from black, falsely proclaiming the Buddha Dharma. Such persons, in fact, blaspheme the Buddha and subvert the Dharma. They preach as if they are bringing rain, but theirs is the preaching of devils, not of Buddhas. Their teaching is the king of devils, and their disciples are the devil's minions. Deluded people who follow such instructions unwittingly sink deeper in the sea of birth and death. Unless they see their nature, how can people can themselves Buddhas? They are liars who deceive others into entering the realm of devils unless they see their nature Their preaching of the twelvefold canon is nothing but the preaching of devils. Their allegiance is to Mara, not to the Buddha. Unable to distinguish white from black, how can they escape birth and death? Whoever sees his nature is the Buddha. Whoever doesn't is a moral, but you can find your Buddha nature apart from your moral nature. Where is it? Our moral nature is our Buddha nature. Beyond this nature, there is no Buddha. The Buddha is our nature. There is no Buddha besides this nature, and there is no nature besides the Buddha. But suppose I don't see my nature, I can't still attain enlightenment by invoking Buddhas, reciting sutras, making offerings, observing precepts, practicing devotions, or doing good works. No, you can't. Why not? If you attain anything at all, it is conditional, it is karmic. It results in retribution. It turns the wheel, and as long as you are subject to birth and death, you'll never attain enlightenment. To attain enlightenment, you have to see your nature. Unless you see your nature, all this talk about cause and effect is nonsense. Buddhas don't practice nonsense. A Buddha is free of karma, free of cause and effect. To say he attains anything at all is to slander a Buddha. What could he possibly attain? Even focusing on a mind, a power, an understanding, or a view is impossible for Buddha. The Buddha is not one sided, the nature of his mind is basically empty. A Buddha's a Buddha is not one sided. The nature of his mind is basically empty, neither pure nor impure. He is free of practice, realization. He is free of cause and effect. A Buddha doesn't observe precepts. A Buddha doesn't do good or evil. A Buddha is not energetic or lazy. A Buddha is someone who does nothing, someone who can't even focus his mind on a Buddha. A Buddha is not a Buddha. Don't think about Buddhas. If you don't see what I am talking about, you'll never know what is your own nature. What is your own mind? People who don't see their nature and imagine they can practice thoughtlessness all the time are liars and fools. They fall into endless space. They are like drunks. They can't tell good from evil. They can't tell good from evil. If you intend to cultivate such a practice, if you to see your nature before you can put an end to rational thought, to attain enlightenment without seeing your nature is impossible. Still others commit all sorts of evil deeds, claiming karma doesn't exist. They erroneously maintain that since everything is empty, committing evil is not wrong. Such persons fall into a hell of endless darkness and with no hope of release. Those who are wise hold no such conception. But if our every movement or state, whatever it occurs, is the mind, why don't we see his mind when a person's body dies? The mind is always present, you just don't see it. But if the mind is present, why don't see it? Do you ever dream? Of course, when you dream, is that you? Yes, it's me. And is what you are doing and saying different from you? No, it is not. But if it is not, then this body is your real body, and this real body is your mind, and this mind through endless kalpas without beginning, he never varied. It has never lived or died. appeared or disappeared, increased or deceased. It is not pure or impure, good or evil, past or future. It is not true or false. It is not male or female. It does not appear as a monk or a layman, an elder or a novice, a sage or a fool, a Buddha or a moral. It strives for no realization and suffers no karma. It has no strength or form. It is like space. You can't possess it and you can't lose it. Its movements can't be blocked by mountains, rivers, or rock walls. Its unstoppable powers penetrate the mountain of five skandhas and cross the river of samsara. No karma can restrain this real body, but this mind is subtle and hard to see. It is not the same as the sensual mind. Everyone wants to see this mind, and those who move their hands and feet by its light are as many as the grains of sand along the Gangas. But when you ask them, they can't explain it. They are like puppets. It is theirs to use. Why don't they see it? The Buddha said people are deluded. This is why when they act, they fall into the river of endless rebirth. And when they try to get out, only they only sink deeper. Thank you. We will continue on next day. And when they try to go out, they only sink deeper. And all because they don't see their nature. If people were not deluded, why would they ask about something right in front of them? Not one of them understand the movement of his own hand and feet. The Buddha was not mistaken. Deluded people don't know who they are. Something so hard to fathom is known by a Buddha and no one else. Only the wise know this mind called dharma nature, this mind called liberation. Neither life nor death can restrain this mind. Nothing can. It's also called the unstoppable Tathagra, the incomprehensible, the sacred self, the immortal, the great sage. Its names vary, but not its essence. Buddhas vary too, but none leaves his own mind. The mind's capacity is limitless, and its manifestations are inexhaustible. Seeing forms with your eyes, hearing sounds with your ears, smelling odors with your nose, tasting flavors with your tongue. Every moment or state is all your mind. At every moment where language can't go, that's your mind. The sutras say a Tathagata's forms are endless, and so is his awareness. The endless varieties of form is due to the mind, its ability to distinguish things, whatever their movement or state is. The mind's awareness, but the mind has no form and its awareness no limit. Hence it is said a Tathagata's forms are endless, and so is his awareness. A material body of the four element is trouble. A material body is subject to birth and death, but the real body exists without existing, because a Tathagata's real body never changes. The sutra says people should realize that the Buddha nature is something they have always had. Kashyapa only realized his own nature. Our nature is the mind, and the mind is our nature. Our nature is the mind, and the mind is our nature. This nature is the same as the mind of all Buddhas. Buddhas of the past and future only transmit this mind. Beyond this mind, there is no Buddha anywhere. But deluded people don't realize that their own mind is the Buddha. They keep searching outside. They never stop invoking Buddhas or worshipping Buddhas and wondering where is the Buddha. Don't indulge in such illusions. Just know your mind. Beyond your mind, there is no other Buddha. The sutras say everything that has form is an illusion. They also say whatever you are, wherever you are, there is a Buddha. Your mind is the Buddha. Don't use a Buddha to worship a Buddha. Even if a Buddha or Bodhisattva should suddenly appear before you, there is no need for reverence. This mind of ours is empty and contains no such form. Those who hold onto appearance are devils. They fall from the path. Why worship illusions born of the mind? Those who worship don't know, and those who know don't worship. By worshipping, you come under the spell of devils. I point this out because I am afraid you are unaware of it. The basic nature of the Buddha has no such form. Keep this in mind even if something unusual should appear. Don't embrace it and don't fear it, and don't doubt that your mind is basically pure. Where could there be room for any such form? Also, at the appearance of spirits, demons, or divine beings, conceive neither respect nor fear. Your mind is basically empty. All appearances are illusions. Don't hold on to appearances. Thank you. If you envision a Buddha, a Dharma, or a Bodhisattva and conceive respect for them, you relegate yourself to the realm of mortals. If you seek direct understanding, don't hold on to any appearance whatsoever, and you'll succeed. I have no other advice. The sutras say all appearances are illusions. They have no fixed existence, no constant forms. They are impermanent. Don't cling to appearances, and don't be of one mind from the Buddha. One mind with the Buddha. The sutra says that that which is free of all form is the Buddha. But why shouldn't we worship Buddha and Bodhisattvas? Devils and demons possesses the power of manifestation. They they can create appearance of bodhisattvas in arts all short of guesses, but they are false. None of them are Buddhas. The Buddha is your own mind. Don't misdirect your worship. Buddha is Sanskrit for what you are, for what you call aware, miraculously aware, responding, perceiving, achieving, arching your brows, blinking your eyes, moving your hands and feet. It's all your miraculously aware nature, and this nature is the mind, and the mind is the Buddha, and the Buddha is the path, and the path is Zen. But the word Zen is one that remains a puzzle to both mortals and sages. Seeing your nature is Zen. Unless you see your nature, it is not Zen. Even if you can explain thousands of sutras and shastras, unless you see your own nature, yours is the teaching of a mortal, not a Buddha. The true way is sublime. It can't be expressed in language. Of what use are scriptures? But someone who sees his own nature finds the way, even if he can't read a word. Someone who sees his nature is a Buddha, and since a Buddha's body is intrinsically pure and unsullied, and everything he says is an expression of his mind, being basically empty, a Buddha can't be found in words or anywhere in the 12th food canon. The way is basically perfect. It doesn't require perfecting. The way has no form or sound. It's subtle and hard to perceive. It is like when you drink water, you know how hot and cold it is, but you can't tell others. Or of that which only a Tathagata knows, men and gods remain unaware. The awareness of mortals falls short. As long As long as they are attached to appearances, they are unaware that their minds are empty, and by mistakenly clinging to the appearances of things, they lose the way. If you know that everything comes from the mind, don't become attached. Once attached, you are unaware. But once you see your own nature, the entire canon becomes so much prose. Its thousands of sutras and shastras only amount to a clear mind. Understanding comes in mid sentence. What good are doctrines? The ultimate truth is beyond words. Doctrines are words. They are not the way. The way is wordless. Words are illusions. They are no different from things that appear in your dreams at night, be they places or carriages, forested parks or lakeside pavilions. Don't conceive any delight for such things. They are all cradles of rebirth. Keep this in mind when you approach death. Don't cling to appearances and you'll break through all barriers. A moment's hesitation and you'll be under the spell of devils. Your real body is pure and impervious, but because of delusions, you are unaware of it, and because of this, you suffer karma in vain. Wherever you find delight, you find bondage. But once you awaken to your original body and mind, you are no longer bound by attachments. Anyone who gives up the transcendent for the mundane in any of its myriad forms is a mortal. A Buddha is someone who finds freedom in good fortune and bad. Such is his power that Karma can't hold him. No matter what kind of karma a Buddha transforms it, heaven or hell are nothing to him. But the awareness of mortal is dim compared to that of a Buddha, who penetrates everything inside and out. If you are not sure, don't act. Once you act, you wander through birth and death and regret having no refuge. Poverty and hardship are created by false thinking. To understand this mind, you have to act without acting. Only then will you see things from a Tathagata's perspective. But when you first embark on path, your awareness won't be focused. You are likely to see all sorts of strange, dreamlike scenes, but you shouldn't doubt that all such scenes come from your own mind and nowhere else. If, as in a dream, you see a light brighter than the sun, your remaining attachments will suddenly come to an end, and to nature of reality will be revealed. But this is something only you know. You can't explain it to others. Or if while you are walking, standing, sitting, or lying in a quiet group, you see a light, regardless of whether it is bright or dim. Don't tell others and don't focus on it. It is the light of your own nature. Or if while you are walking, standing, sitting, or lying in the stillness and darkness of night, everything appears as though in daylight. Don't be startled. It is your own mind about to reveal itself. Stars, it is your own mind about to reveal itself. Or if while you are dreaming at night, you see the moon and stars in all their clarity, it means the workings of your mind are about to end. But don't tell others. And if your dreams are not clear, as if you were walking in the dark, it is because your mind is masked by chaos. This too is something only you know. If you see your nature, you don't need to read sutras or invoke Buddhas. Eru- Erudition and knowledge are not only useless but also cloud your awareness. Doctrines are only for pointing to the mind. Once you see your mind, why pay attention to doctrines? To go from mortal to Buddha, you have to put an end to karma, nurture your awareness, and accept what life brings. If you are always getting angry, you'll turn your nature against the way. There is no advantage in deceiving yourself. Buddhas move freely through birth and death, appearing and disappearing at will. They can't be restrained by karma or outcome by devils. Once mortals see their nature, all attachments and awareness is hidden, but you can't only find it right now. It is only now. If you really want to find the way, don't hold on to anything. Once you put an end to karma and nurture your awareness, any attachments that remain will come to an end. Understanding comes naturally. You don't have to make any effort. But fanatics don't understand what the Buddha meant, and the harder they try, the further they get from the sage's meaning. All day long, they invoke Buddhas and read sutras, but they remain blind to their own divine nature, and they don't escape the wheel. A Buddha is an idle person. He doesn't run around after fortune and fame. What good are such things in the end? People who don't see their nature and think reading sutras, invoking Buddhas, studying long and hard, practicing morning and night, never lying down or acquiring knowledge in the dharma. Acquiring knowledge is the dharma. Blaspheme the dharma. Buddhas of the past and future only talk about seeing your nature. All practices are impermanent unless they see their nature. People who claim to have attained unexcelled complete enlightenment are liars. Among Sakyamuni's 10 greatest disciples, Ananda was foremost in learning, but he didn't know the Buddha. All he did was study and memorize. Arhatas don't know the Buddha. All they know are so many practices of realization and they become trapped by cause and effect. Such is a mortals of mortals karma, no escape from birth and death by doing the opposite of what he intended. Such people blaspheme the Buddha. Killing them would not be wrong. The sutra say, since Ichhantikas are incapable of belief, killing them would be blameless, whereas people who believe reach the state of Buddhahood. Unless you see your nature, you shouldn't go around criticizing the goodness of others. There is no advantage in deceiving yourself. Good and bad are distinct. Cause and effect are clear. Heaven and hell are right before your eyes. But fools don't believe and fall straight into the hell of endless darkness without even knowing it. What keeps them from believing is the heaviness of their karma. They are like blind people who don't believe there's such a thing as light. Even if you explain it to them, they still don't believe because they are blind. How can they possibly distinguish light? The same holds true for fools who end up among the lower. Orders of existence or among the poor and despised. They can't live and they can't lie. And despite their sufferings, you ask them, they say they are as happy as gods. All mortals, even those who think themselves well-born, are likewise unaware. Because of the heaviness of their karma, such fools can't believe and can't get free. People who see that their mind is the Buddha don't need to shave their head. Laymen are Buddhas too, unless they see their nature. People who shave their head are simply fanatics. But since married laymen don't give up sex, how can they become Buddhas? I only talk about seeing your nature. I don't talk about see sex simply because you don't see your nature. Once you see your nature, sex is basically immaterial. It ends along with your delight in it. Even if some habit remains, they can't harm you because your nature is essentially pure. Despite dwelling in a material body of four elements, your nature is basically true. It can't be corrupted. Your real body is basically pure. It can't be corrupted. Your real body has no sensation, no hunger or thirst, no warmth or cold, no sickness, no love or attachment, no pleasure or pain, no good or bad, no shortness or length, no weakness or strength. Actually, there is nothing here. It is only because you cling to this material body that things like hunger and thirst, warmth and cold, and sickness appear. Once you stop clinging and let things be, you will be free even of birth and death. You will transform everything. You will possess spiritual powers that can't be obstructed, and you will be at peace Wherever you are, if you doubt this, you'll never see through anything. You are better off doing nothing. Once you act, you can't avoid the cycle of birth and death. Once you see your nature, you are a Buddha, even if you work as a butcher. But butchers create karma by slaughtering animals. How can they be Buddhas? I only talk about seeing your nature. I don't talk about creating karma. Regardless of what we do, our karmas has no hold on us through endless kalpas without beginning. It is only because people don't see their nature that they end up in hell. As long as a person creates karma, he keeps passing through birth and death. What once a person realizes his original nature, he stops creating karma. If he doesn't see his nature, invoking Buddhas won't release him from his karma, regardless of whether or not he is a butcher. But once he sees his nature, all doubts vanish. Even a butcher's karma has no effect on such a person. In India, the 27 part in 27 patriarchs only transmitted the imprints of the mind. And the only reason I have come to China is to transmit the instant, instantaneous teaching of the Mahayana. This mind is the Buddha. I don't talk about percepts, devotions, or ascetics practices such as immersing yourself in water and fire, thre- trading a wheel of knives, eating one meal a day, or never lying down. These are fanatical provisions teachings. Once you recognize your moving miraculously aware nature, yours is the mind of all Buddhas. Buddhas of the past and future only talk about transmitting the mind. They teach nothing else. If someone understands this teaching, even if he is illiterate, he is a Buddha. If you don't see your own miraculously aware nature, you'll never find a Buddha, even if you break your body into atoms. The Buddha is your real body, your original mind. The mind has no form or characteristics, no cause or effect, no tendons or bones. It is like space. You can't hold it. It is not the mind of materialist or nihilist, except for a Tathagata. No one else, no mortal, no deluded being can fathom it. But this mind is not somewhere outside the material body of four elements. Without this mind, we can't move. The body has no awareness like a plant or a stone. The body has no nature. So, how does it move? It is the mind that moves. Language and behavior, perception and conception are all functions of the moving mind. All motion in the mind's motion, motion is its function. Apart from motion, there is no mind, and apart from the mind, there is no motion. But motion is not the mind, and the mind is not the motion. Motion is basically mindless, and the mind is basically motionless. But motion doesn't exist without the mind, and the mind doesn't exist without motion. There is no mind for motion to exist apart from and no motion for mind to exist apart from. Motion is the mind's function and its function is its motion. Even so, the mind neither moves into functions because the essence of its functioning is emptiness, and emptiness is essentially motionless. Motion is the same as the mind, and the mind is essentially motionless. Hence, the sutras tell us to move without moving, to travel without traveling, and to see without seeing, to laugh without laughing, to hear without hearing, to know without knowing, to be happy without happy, to walk without walking, to stand without standing. And the sutras say, go beyond language, go beyond thought. Basically, seeing, hearing, and knowing are completely empty. Your anger, joy, or pain is like that of puppet. You can't search, but you won't find a thing. According to sutras, evil deeds result in hardship and good deeds results in blessings. Angry people go to hell and happy people go to heaven. Once you know that the nature of anger and joy is empty and you let them go, you free yourself from karma. If you don't see your nature, quoting sutras is no help. I could go on, but this belief sermon will have to do. Thank you.